Good morning, everybody. This is Scott in a shot at 5:30. What time is it now? It's after 6 now, almost 7. This episode of my podcast is about the kids and the pandemic and about how the Democratic Party allowed our kids to suffer. I mean, and the suffering's not over yet for a lot of these kids. People, they were kept out of school for about 2 years in a lot of states, especially the public schools, not the private schools. But I mean, they were left out of school for all that time. You know, um, when they were in school, you got teachers going behind the parents' back and trying to talk to them about sexual matters, about their sexual preferences and their sexual life. Like a kid in grade school has a sex life. You know what I'm saying? Or in middle school, really. But they're talking about our kids behind their and telling them that they don't have to listen to their parents when it comes to their sexuality. Which the parents aren't forcing sexuality down kids, as they find that on their own. But the Democratic Party really doesn't like kids, and that's what I see because they allowed this to happen. A lot of those kids that were out of school during those years, they really messed up, and they missed out. And because how's a kid supposed to learn at home when the parents are gone on a computer? I mean, they're supposed to be supervised because kids are going to be kids, especially in grade school and middle school. They don't have study habits yet and stuff like that. But yet, the parents are going to work, and they're thinking that this virtual learning on the internet is gonna cut the mustard. Well, it doesn't, people. I mean, that's why kids failed. That's why they're doing they were doing horribly when there was a teacher in the room. I mean, the kids weren't learning nothing, and now they want them to try to learn something when the parents are at work, and they're supposed to rely on them getting on that computer and not having their cell phone sitting right there, not having a TV on, not fucking around with games and stuff like that. The kids really took the blunt of it, and a lot of kids did die from COVID. Not a lot, but a lot did. Not a super lot, but kids did die from COVID. So, that gain of function research that our government funded over in Wuhan, doesn't that if that was funded research by America, why would you be trying to make a new disease? I mean, for whatever whenever you do that, there's always a risk that it's going to get out. I mean, why would you do anything more like that? Isn't that like making a chemical weapon? Why else would you do it? But they unleashed. In my opinion, I think our government was involved on that leak to try to stifle the reelection of Donald Trump. That's my opinion on it. And that was the length. That was the how far the Democratic Party was willing to go. That's how much they were willing to sacrifice just to get Donald Trump not reelected back in 2020. With all the other corrupt stuff they were doing with the stifling of free speech and information, everything that ever came out is to Democrats misinformation when it's true information. But the kids, they really suffered, people, and they're still suffering for it. We got a couple generations now, a couple, kids from like probably kindergarten up through ninth, 10th grade that are way behind, and they were already behind. Like I said, they weren't being taught anything when there was a teacher in the room, so they're way behind. A lot of them are probably getting out of school. They're just going to get passed through just to get them out like they've always done. You don't really have to pass school to graduate. That's what I've learned. I know people that had their kids have to go back to school their senior year, and they still didn't really finish, but since they showed up, they still got a diploma. It's basically a participation award. I thought the diploma meant that they learned something. I didn't know a diploma was a participation award. I thought you earned that diploma because you passed your grades. Unless the kid drops out, I don't think a kid should be passed through school, even at the senior level. Check it out, people. When I was in high school, I was failing a practical law because I never did homework really. All the other classes I was getting C's in, but I was actually failing in practical law. And his name was Mr. Lynch. My practical law teacher came up to me and he's like, I'm a senior in high school. He's like, Scott, you're either gonna get a minimum of a C on this final test, or you're coming back next year. Plain and simple. So I studied my ass off for the first time, because most of the stuff I just know good enough to pass. But I was really not into laws back then, the laws, because I was smoking weed in high school and all that, playing sports. I wasn't breaking laws, so I didn't think I needed to learn too much about them. And most of them anyway from, because you drive, you do things. But Yeah, they're going to hold me back if I didn't. I mean, because one class, so I ended up getting a B on that test. I mean, on my final, and I passed and I graduated. But I mean, that's what I'm talking about, people. You have to pass to pass, right? I mean, they want a participation award for everything, but how does that benefit the kid? Makes it feel all warm inside, but he didn't learn nothing. I mean, so that warm, fuzzy feeling is not going to help him out to get a job down the road, not a good job anyway. I mean, so and that pandemic and that COVID really pisses me off, people, because it killed a lot of our parents. It killed a lot of my aunts and uncles. It killed a lot of family members, and it killed even children. That was and like I said, the children, to me, the children are the worst of it, because what's this country going to be like in a bunch of years from now, when these kids are when there's not when you got a whole country full of kids that didn't learn what they were supposed to learn. Now, hopefully, they jump over that hurdle, and they get past that, and they realize that hard work will get you a long way in life without having too much of a brain, as long as you show up and work hard. But that's sketchy. I mean, that's not something I want to rely on for our kids. I don't want to rely on our kids. Just hoping they do good. I want to know they're going to do good. So I mean, the Democratic Party really hates kids, and it was amplified by Joe Biden pardoning that judge back east, or back from Virginia, who was put in prison for 17 years for sending kids to juvenile prison that didn't really belong there, because he was getting kickbacks from it. He got, over a couple year period, or a bunch of years, he got $2.1 million in kickbacks in his pocket for prosecuting children and putting them in a juvenile facilities that are like prisons. And Joe Biden pardoned him. Joe Biden pardoned a piece of shit like that. A judge who was purposely convicting people of children of crimes. They did the crime, but I mean, a kid got caught with paraphernalia. A high school kid, a wrestler. It was on the news, and he got 2 years, 2 years for getting caught with some paraphernalia. A high school kid, a wrestler, a stud. That's overkill, but he got a payback for it. Joe Biden, I mean, he did that to hundreds of kids, and Joe Biden just pardoned that piece of shit. I mean, that is how I know the Democratic Party really has disdain for not just Americans, but for even the children. That's a bad example to set for anybody's children. And the Democrats have kids. The Democratic people have kids. They don't even care about their kids. They don't care if their kids are learning what they're supposed to learn. They don't care if they're getting indoctrinized in school and colleges. I mean, I feel sorry for a bunch of these generations, that are coming up here. The Gen Zers, the millennials, not the millennials, but the Gen Zers and then the young ones, because they really got asked out. I mean, who shuts down schools? You can't do that. I mean, but they did it. Let's get beyond that. But they did it. I mean, the disdain that they have for this country and our kids and our parents, us. I mean, it really blows my mind. I mean, that so many voters don't see that. And how could somebody hate one man so bad, like Donald Trump, which I think is a great man? How could somebody hate somebody so bad that they're willing to overlook every other thing that's happening that the Democratic Party is doing bad, just to get him not elected into office again? That is, what kind of character is that? What kind of person thinks that's okay? I mean, you don't vote for a president over personality, really. You vote because you know they can get the job done. They're going to make us safe. And especially our kids safe. We're missing 300,000 to 500,000 kids that America is responsible for, because we allowed them to come over that border illegally. That's what's up. We're responsible for them. I mean, if you didn't want to be responsible for them, then we shouldn't have let them come over. But if we're going to let them come over, I mean, I get it. You guys don't want to. You guys just want everybody to just go where they want to go. But these are kids. They weren't even making sure these kids were with their biological parents. They weren't. I mean, they weren't testing them. They don't even know if those were. I mean, you had people sponsoring several. I mean, so much corruption in that program that I mean, how could you let a program that's dealing with housing children and putting them in some kind of care or foster care or family care until we get this border thing situated and figured out? What kind of person lets that kind of corruption infiltrate a program that is meant to make kids safe? You know what I'm saying? There's no bounds that the Democratic Party won't jump over or respect. They just don't care. all over. I mean, now they say it's Donald Trump, but they've always been this way. I think I've always seen it. But I mean, 3 to 500,000 children unaccountable for. They don't know where they're at. Yeah, people, Donald Trump and the Republican Party, thank God for them. They have their work cut out for them because I want these illegals out of here. I mainly all of them, honestly, but I want these kids found, and I don't just want them found. I want their parents found, and I want their parents in trouble for them putting their kid in this kind of jeopardy, and then send them back. But those parents need to be held accountable. I mean, who sends a 2-year-old kid to the border without a parent supervising him? And I mean, like I said, people, the Democratic Party, I mean, here it is Christmas time. Merry Christmas to everybody. But let's let these kids shine again. I mean, like I said, we have to make the world a better place for the future. Stop dwelling on the past. I mean, the past is over with now. Now we got to worry about the future. So what are we going to do about all these missing kids? And how are we going to make sure that this never happens again? Because, wow, a pandemic in 2021. Can you believe that? I mean, if I wouldn't have saw it when it was all going down, I was like, no way. Shit that you see in a movie. I mean, did our government get this kind of ideas from watching these movies? I mean, they're so into Hollywood. They probably did. You know, they script everything. They script every interview they do, like Kamala Harris with all her little scripted, little fake little meetings she had with everybody. I think almost everything about the Democratic Party is scripted. I think they hire a Hollywood producer and director, and everything they do is a scripted, directed, fake little movie type deal. You know what I mean? It's not even them being sincere, honest, forthright, or anything. It's just a fiction movie. You know, it's weird. You know, but it sucks because real people are paying the price for this kind of deception, this kind of deceit, this kind of lawlessness. Kids are paying for it. Parents are paying for it. A lot of parents are dead now because of the pandemic. I mean, all just to get Donald Trump not reelected. Look, he just got reelected in 2024. So I was waiting for another pandemic to come. I mean, hopefully we can get Donald Trump to office without getting assassinated. You know what I'm saying? Because 2 assassination attempts. I mean, if I wouldn't have saw that again, I wouldn't. I mean, I thought that those days were over. You know, it blew my mind when Reagan got shot. But I mean, you got Steve Scalise got shot. All those other Republican baseball players on that baseball game got shot. I mean, what's up with the Democratic Party and the Democratic people? Honestly, I mean, you never see this kind of hate being done by a Republican. It's like that guy who just shot that CEO. He's a liberal. I mean, what is wrong with these people? You can't go kill some guy because you don't like your insurance policy. Go get another policy. This kid was rich. He comes from rich parents. He has 2 major degrees from 2 major colleges, and he's worried about insurance payments. I mean, he's not. I mean, poor people worry about them. I mean, middle class worry about it, but he's always been raised upper middle class and higher. I mean, and he had, like I said, he graduated top of his class in high school, went to prestigious colleges, got 2 different degrees, one in engineering, one in computer science, and he's whining. He's probably whining because he probably cut him off his pain meds. Probably an opioid addict. You know what I'm saying? When it came right down to it. You know, and it's like everybody that people that are sick that are right my age. You know, we'll break away from the kid thing now. I said what I want to say about that, but I mean, the opioid epidemic. I am fully disabled, people. I've fallen off 3 structures over a 30-year period of doing construction, and I've always went back to work except this last time did me in. I've had 13 surgeries. My arm's been broken 4 times. My wrist crushed once on this arm right here. You see the surgeries on it, maybe. I mean, I've had surgeries on both sides. My pelvis, I had 14 fractures in my pelvis. I thought it was more, but it was 14 fractures in my pelvis. I broke both of my feet severely. My feet are shot. I blew out a hernia. My ankle was crushed, and I'm classified as fully disabled now. And I do not do opioids no more. I walked away from opioids because they started talking to me like I never asked for an opioid. I have a lot of pain, and they gave me pain meds. I never took any more than directed. I don't even know why people take them and get high on them. I've never been high on a pill, not on my pain meds. They took care of my pain, but they started talking to me like I was some kind of drug addict. Talking rehab. One day they started changing out my pain doctor every month. And then they started talking rehab, and I'm like, what do you? I mean, so I finally realized that they're thinking that I'm a drug addict. It's like, man, if I was going to be a drug addict, there's a lot of other drugs I would choose before I was doing pills. All right. I mean, I know people get that speeder effect on them. They say I never felt it, but if I want to do speed, I'll go do some real speed. You know, what I mean, I'll do some meth or something, and I don't want to do that. But I'm just saying. But so I walked away from pain management, and they started kicking everybody off pain management. People started walking away from it because they were getting treated like shit. And all they did was, and then all of a sudden you hear about the fentanyl. So our government basically took the pain meds away from that we were getting from doctors, the right way. So everybody's going to mess up on pain. Some people are going to mess up on pain pills no matter what, people. So, I mean, but you can't blame every injured person who has pain on that. You can't judge the whole thing like that. So they let the cartels, our government is allowing those cartels to bring that fentanyl into this country. There's no other way to see it. We are the number one power in the world. We can't shut down those cartels on that border from bringing that stuff in. If anybody believes that, then they're just really, truly, really, truly ignorant. I mean, nothing happens in this country that our country's not allowing, like these drones that are going overhead. I mean, if they didn't want them there, they wouldn't be there. So it makes you want to think about that. Why don't they don't want to talk about it really? You know why? Because they're in on it. The Democratic Party is in on a lot of corruption, people. It has no bounds. It goes that way, this way, that way, that way, and they don't care who it affects, as long as they get the outcome that they want for their political careers. You know what I mean? That's what I see. So so I mean, they're worried about everybody that was dying on their pain meds. Well, so they basically kicked most of the people off pain meds, or they walked away like I did. But they'll allow the cartels to bring over pain meds that are 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more powerful, and let 100,000 people a year die on the streets. You know what I'm saying? Of all ages. I mean, I'm talking kids, pregnant women. Before, you had to somebody had to go sell their pain meds, and hopefully it didn't go to kids, but the kids didn't get them a lot. But when you got it selling on the streets, whoever's got that money to walk up to that dealer, they get their pills. I mean, so it opened up a whole market of new drugs to our children. I mean, so everything that these Democrats do, man, it just blows my mind. I mean, but the kids, they're taking the brunt of it. I mean, how many kids that are high school or lower have died from illegal fentanyl that's came over that border? I mean, so they don't care about our kids. They don't care about our parents. They don't care about us. They don't care about nobody. They only care about themselves. I mean, isn't that pretty obvious, people? Isn't that pretty obvious? I think it is. I mean, oh man, I just when you think you saw it all, you wake up in 2024 to a president like Joe Biden, man. I mean, and you're just like, wow. I'm glad I woke up, people, and started giving a shit, because for a long time I was just, you talk about it with a few people and just, you act like it doesn't affect you, all this crazy stuff, because you're not crazy and your life's not crazy, but you're seeing it affect the country. And I just stayed out of it. But I don't know who watches the podcast. I don't read comments. I get on here and I talk my talk, and I hope someday enough people see it and realize. And even though the times may change, I want my message to get out there that we have to keep an eye on our government at all times, and we have to care enough to stand up and say something. And it doesn't matter. I don't care how somebody says something. Nobody's going to say something that's going to hurt my ears. I'm a grown man. I mean, I'm an adult. So I just want people to stand up, and however you feel you got to say it, say it. Let's not try to hate each other, but let's talk what's going on. I mean, talking truth is not hate speech, people. Talking truth, I mean, it's only hate speech if you're like a Democrat and you call everything's misinformation or disinformation. That's not true. But this pardon that Joe Biden did on this judge, man, it's blowing my mind. I mean, that guy was getting paid to put kids in juvie prisons because he was getting a kickback for everyone that he convicted. And Joe Biden just pardoned him. He said in his little letter that no bad people, that he didn't know, there was no serious offenders on any bad crimes that he pardoned. That's not bad. Hunter Biden, he pardoned his own son so he wouldn't get in trouble, or Joe Biden, but he's let a judge out of jail that put your kids in jail that wasn't warranted. It wasn't warranted. the kid did something where they're in trouble, but they did something that didn't warrant a child going to juvie prison for 2 years. That wrestler went there for 2 years for having alcohol paraphernalia, whatever the fuck that is. I mean, I know what alcohol. What's alcohol paraphernalia? What is that? An open container? I don't know. But I mean, 2 years, 2 years. My God, I got caught with marijuana back when I was like 16 years old by a cop that pulled me over. He found my weed. Got in trouble. That cop just took my weed, put it on the ground, and sat there and scratched it into the ground with his foot, and set me on my way. I mean, I was devastated. I'm not my bag. I mean, but that's what I'm talking about here, people. I mean, but if Joe Biden was in office back then, I mean, if that judge was around back then, if the cop would have pursued that, I would have been put in prison for getting caught with the eighth weed. You know what I mean? I mean, it's overkill, people. I mean, but putting kids in prisons, I mean, for minor offenses when they're minors, because you get a kickback on it, isn't that as sinister as it gets? Isn't that as evil as it gets? Preying on children like that? Not to Joe Biden, not to Corn Pop and Joe Biden. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Corn Pop's rolling around in his grave. Well, there's no Corn Pop, I don't think, but I'm just fucking around. But I mean, that's how much disdain the Democratic Party has for everybody, and especially the kids, man. They just don't care. They just don't care. What kind of piece of shit sits there and defends or pardons a man like that? I mean, all the parents of those kids and all the citizens of Virginia, that was a big deal back then. I remember it. They're all like, "Oh my God, Joe Biden's low. They go high, we go low. They go whatever. He is so low. He is just I couldn't believe it before my mom died. He's such a nice old man. He's an evil motherfucker. Joe Biden is 100% evil. I mean, he just is. The whole party is. It's not just Joe Biden. Everybody wants to act, the Democratic Party, they want to act like Joe Biden messed up. No, you guys all messed up. You guys all messed up. You messed up with our kids. You messed up with our health. You messed up with our schools. You messed up with our border. You messed up with stifling our free speech. But the kids, it really makes me mad, people, because you shouldn't prey on kids. You don't take away their schooling where they get all their social activities, where they learn to, when it's such a hard world for kids to intermingle now with each other because of technology. You don't take that away from them. I mean, more than the schooling, because they weren't teaching them nothing in school anyway, more than the schooling, I think, when those kids were out of school, they needed they needed contact with each other. The kids need that. They need to learn how to treat each other and how to show respect, how to have manners, how to get together and have fun. It's part of growing up. And not all growing up is just learning your book work. It's called social interacting. It's very important, people. It's so important. It's equally as important as what you're learning. As kids getting together and know how to act when they're in a group of a whole bunch of kids, so they don't kill each other, don't fight. I mean, don't bully each other. It's very, very important for kids, for a child to experience those things in life. And some of them aren't all great either. Some days you go to school, you have fun. Some days shit happen, but you need that interaction for growth. You need that. It has to be there. They took that away from the kids. They weren't teaching them nothing in school anyway, except how to be a transgender. But then they take away their social life. I mean, what else? I mean, that's mainly a kid's social. That's their whole social life when they're growing up. Basically, it's not being around their parents. It's them going to school. When I was in high school, most of my friends dropped out of school because I was an athlete though. I liked school. All the girls were at school, so I didn't want to miss school. But I mean, but I liked going to school. That's where you interact with everybody. I mean, that's where everything happens. But they didn't want to ditch school, and I'd be like, I'm not ditching school, man, and I'm not dropping out. All the girls are at school. I have fun at school. So basically, I had like 5 buddies that I hung out with growing up, and 3 of them dropped out, and it was just me and my best friend Shane that ended up getting through it. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, that's how I feel about the whole Democratic Party, man. I just have no feelings for him no more. I don't have hate for him. I don't hate Joe Biden. I don't hate the Democratic Party, but I do have disdain for them for the things that they have allowed to happen, for how cavalier they are about people suffering. It's like all these people back at where the hurricanes were. Man, they're still digging out people. They're going to be digging out. I mean, winter's here. Everything's going to be put on hold a lot in a lot of those areas because of snow and the cold. I mean, people living in tents because of it. You know, and so many kids going without Christmas in those areas, because they don't have a home to go to. And their parents are broke probably because, their whole house is gone. Their cars got washed down the road. All their furniture in the house is wasted. I mean, so they don't have, so what about this is my challenge to Joe Biden's piece of shit ass before he gets out of jail. I challenge you to have our government donate a few $1,000,000 to some kind of organization back east before Christmas, and to give and donate that money to be given to these families, or buy toys with it and let these kids go shopping like I'm watching on the news here. Shut down a bunch of schools, go to a bunch of different schools, cafeterias, and fill it full of toys and let these kids go Christmas shopping. Everything free. That's my challenge to the Democratic Party. Show us that you give a shit about these kids. Instead of giving free money away to illegal immigrants, sending money to countries that hate us, let's make this Christmas special for these kids back east. The ones that don't have homes right now because of all these hurricanes, fires back that are burned down and that are everywhere and we're burning out. I mean, let's make it a special Christmas for all these kids. Let's let the kids shine again. Let's get them some presents and let them realize that this country's not that hateful. The Democratic Party is. And let them show me something that I haven't seen from that party in a long, long time. Show me some compassion. Show me some empathy. And show me some giving spirit instead of just taking from us. Show me a giving spirit. And I challenge the Democratic Party to do that because I know they can't do it. Kamala Harris, ever since she lost, she went and hid in a hole. Joe Biden he's always been in a hole. So anyway, that's my podcast today. I just hope everybody remembers the kids. I hope all these kids back east have some kind of Christmas. I mean, because they got their schooling taken away and their life has been hard for the last 4 years. I mean, no social activities for a lot of them, over the pandemic, a couple years. I mean, oh my God. And I'm going to say it again. Let's find these missing kids that came over that border illegally with their parents or whoever they came over with by themselves. They have to be found. We have to know if they're being tortured, if they're being used as sex slaves. We need to know what's going on there. And I just don't want to hear about. I just don't want to see that. I want to know. I want programs on TV to tell us what they're finding out about where these kids are at. It's very important, people. No other country that I've ever known of has let kids in by themselves, a lot of them, in that great of numbers through the disguise of opening our borders, but and then lost them. They allowed corruption in the system to where they were able to be lost. They allowed it, people. It's not by accident. It's not that hard to figure out how to keep kids how to keep kids tracked. The reason why they're not tracked and they don't know where they are because they just didn't care. Wow. The Democratic Party, man, they just blow my mind every day. They blow my mind even more. They just don't care. I mean, if they did care, this would have never happened. If they cared about any of us Americans, they would never let this stuff happen at the border. It's not. They don't care nothing about America no more. What they stand for, I don't know. They won't. I mean, they say they stand for America, but they don't. All their actions say different. So let's get back to being happy again. I'm happy. I hope you're happy. I hope we can make these kids back east happy somehow with gifts. Me and my wife's gonna try to donate to some organization here in the next couple of days. And thank God for Donald Trump. I mean, thank God for the Republican Party. I mean, and thank you to the people of this country for voting to get for getting this craziness out of our office, so we can all get along again, so we can all try to work out these difficult problems that we have in this country and problems for the world, honestly, because we are the beacon of the world. I mean, as much as I'd like us to just stand aside and not worry about it, I guess we have to. And but we can't do that if we can't. I mean, how can we do that if we can't even keep track of some kids we let over in this country? 300 to 500,000. Think about that number, people. That makes me sick. Thinking about it, it makes me sick. It's disgusting. It's so disgusting. I don't even know. I can't. There's not a word that I can think of that describes how disgusting our government's been over the last 4 years. I mean, I can't find a word. I can't find a word to tell for how disgusting they've been acting and the things they put onto this country and the American people, our kids, our family, our mothers, our parents, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles. I mean, and the American citizen. Like I said, I love America. I love the people of America, regardless of what color, race, or origin you are. I mean, unless unless we realize we need to bask in the moment, people, and not let this high that we're on go away. Because the only thing that's going to deter this kind of behavior again is people staying high on what just happened with our elections. People staying high and realizing that, man, Donald Trump was a good man after all. Huh? You guys see that now, don't you? I always saw it. I don't care he's a billionaire. I don't care if billionaires get tax breaks as long as we get tax breaks. I don't care. Billionaires create jobs. They give people lives that they couldn't have without having those jobs. I mean, stop worrying about billionaires and worry about yourself and the benefits that Donald Trump does for you, and stop being jealous and vindictive over other people getting the same benefits you get. No matter what, people, we have to live in a fair system. No rich person should have to pay any more taxes than anybody else. I mean, the 1% is already paying over 50 or 60% of the nation's taxes. I mean, what? How much more does the Democratic Party want? Do they want to pay all taxes and just let everybody else not pay? Well, that doesn't. That's not fair. That's not fair because some guy worked hard and he opened up a business that was successful, and they don't want him being any richer because he gets a tax break. I mean, well, he employs thousands of people, or hundreds of people, or even 20 people. Every employer that hires people that has a lot of people working for them, that's a great person. I mean, especially if they're treating them right and paying them right. I mean, without that job, without that person being rich enough to do that job, to create that job, those people wouldn't have that job. And so, I mean, everything the Democratic Party say doesn't even make any sense. You can't tax billionaires into where they're not so hard. They don't want to open up no new businesses. They don't want to create new jobs. What's the incentive to create new jobs if the government's going to take all their money? There's no incentive, so it won't get done. It'll stifle ingenuity, it'll stifle advancement, it'll stifle just life. I mean, just basic life. I mean, we have to have these people that are smart, hardworking, that create jobs and create businesses. We have to have them getting the breaks they get. So because most of them keep creating and creating more opportunity for the American people. This is Scott in a Shot. Hey, Merry Christmas. And after that, Happy New Year. I mean, and the most important, Happy Christmas, kids. Have a great day. This is Scott in a Shot. Scott the Great. Have a good day.